You're listening to Spiritual Growth Tools on the radio, helping you understand the blocks you have in your life to being happy, with a wide variety of guests to help you better understand the problems you're having in your own life. Whether you're depressed, poverty-stricken, suffering ill health, or confused about how to take the next step, discover products, services, and information that will enable you to grow with grace and address issues that are preventing you from happiness, health, or abundance. Go to spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk and find out what's holding you back.
Hello everyone, and you are listening to Spiritual Growth Tools on the radio, where we discuss spiritual growth, what that means, and how it can help you move forward through the blocks that you have to health and happiness. I am your host, Caroline Nettle, and today's guest is Ian Patrick. Welcome, Ian.
Hello, Caroline.
Hi, welcome. So pleased you're on the show.
Yeah, lovely to be here. Thank you for asking me.
You're very, very welcome. So Ian set up the Miracle Network in 1994, I just discovered. So they're in their 20th year. That's a charity here in the UK that caters to students of A Course in Miracles in the UK and worldwide. He also enjoys acting as a hobby, and he likes to arrange courses for students as well as meetings and classes. Ian Patrick did his first book last year. I say did, I mean wrote his first book last year, which is called Of Course. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that later on in the show. But what I thought might be a good way to start, Ian, for those of you that have not heard of you before, if you could just give us a brief introduction. And I thought perhaps talk a little bit about what your life was like before you found the Course in Miracles.
Sure. Well, it was very different to being that of a spiritual teacher, which I suppose you could describe me as now. I was trained as a geologist. I'm a scientist by background. And I worked in the oil industry for, I'm not sure how many years, 18 years or something like that, in oil exploration and drilling wells in the North Sea and all over the place. And particularly in those days, working in the oil industry was very well paid. I had quite a good lifestyle. I was quite affluent. I bought a flat in London, an apartment at the age of 25, and I used to travel all over the place. Was quite comfortably off, but in fact my life was full of activities, parties and social events, and it seemed to be endless. But I would say that although my life was full, it felt empty, and I used to wonder why I did all that stuff. It just seemed to be an endless cycle of, work, party, with a bit of sleeping in the middle, in between. And it all just seemed, I didn't see the point of it. It just seemed to be like, it was rather like a hamster in a wheel, really. And so I just really was just kind of dissatisfied with that kind of existence, as abundant and affluent as it was. And I think there's a teaching there in itself, really.
And what were your coping strategies then for this lack of passion, or whatever you would call it? Was it just buy more, go more places?
Sorry, I missed the beginning of what you said.
What were your coping strategies in those days,
Right. Yeah, I guess so, just to do more of the same, because that's all I knew. There didn't seem to be any, like the hamster on the wheel, there didn't seem to be any way out, except to keep going round and around. And I should say that I had, as a child, what I think were quite kind of deep, quite profound thoughts. And I suppose even preschool age, maybe 4 years old or something like that, I used to wonder about the nature of existence and reality, and about God, about things I heard in church. We weren't regular churchgoers or anything, but I did go occasionally, and I was aware of the Christian message, and it didn't seem to make sense to me. I didn't really get it. But I can give you a couple of examples of thoughts that I had as a child.
Sure.
Which I then later read about in A Course in Miracles, and it was like, oh, that's what I used to think. One of those things was that I was aware of what Jesus said in the Bible, that he was the Son of God, And I used to think, well, he doesn't mean that he is this special person who's the Son of God and the rest of us are nothing. He means that we all are. So what his statement is true, but it's also true of me and you, Caroline, and everyone listening and everybody on the planet. We're all sons of God. And of course, that's what A Course in Miracles says. But I didn't actually hear that being said anywhere else, except in my own thoughts. That was one thing. And another was, I kind of I got the logic of the thought that if God is the creator, and he is love, which is what I was told, then there cannot be a devil, whereas I was told there was. That didn't make sense to me. If God created everything and he was love, he wouldn't create a devil. And again, that's what A Course in Miracles says. It says love is all there is, and everything else is just some kind of crazy idea that we've made up. So it was sort of, my thinking was preempting A Course in Miracles coming into my life. So when I found it, it was like coming home in many ways.
Those were the words in my head, in fact. It was like coming home, yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
So
how I found it, do you want to hear about how I found it?
Yeah, go on.
How I found it. So back in the oil industry as an adult, I was in my late 20s. So I've been working 5 or 6 years at that time in the oil industry. As I said, having lots of fun on the face of it and everything, but feeling this dissatisfaction. I was walking through a park with a friend of mine, and I said, "Why do we do this? What's it all for? What's the point?" And he said, "Oh, so-and-so in the office did this course." And he really got a lot out of it and really rated it. And I knew just from that, I knew nothing about this course. I hadn't spoken to the person who'd done it. Something just told me, you need to do that. And so I made the decision there and then that I would do it. And it wasn't a course that was related to A Course in Miracles, at least not directly. It was more like, have you heard of EST? Or what they now call the Forum or Landmark.
Oh, yes.
It was something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there were people I met one person in particular I met on that course, who then later became a promoter of various teachers, including some Course in Miracles teachers. So it sort of led me. It was a step by step led me towards the Course in Miracles. And then when I eventually heard the course being talked about and heard about what it had to say, then that was when I had that coming home moment.
Yes, all roads lead to Rome type thing. It sounds like you put on the conveyor belt and you just ended up there. I think it was very similar for me. I was being taught by people who were studying the Course in Miracles, but we never said the words A Course in Miracles. So 3 or 4 years later, when I finally picked it up, I'm like, oh, I know. I don't know this, but this is very familiar because I've been, being taught by some teachers.
Yeah. There are a lot of teachers out there who have studied the course in their private lives, but don't necessarily talk about it that much. I think the people like Eckhart Tolle mentions it. Byron Katie mentions it. Louise Hay, people like that.
Yeah.
So it informs their own lives, and it's very much part of their spiritual path. But they do their own work. But it's kind of grounded in Course in Miracles principles, even though it's not overt.
Yes. Okay, Ian, I'm really aware that some people on the show may not know about what the Course in Miracles is, and I had a friend of mine, Gavin, so this question is for you, Gavin, yesterday, post on Facebook, can somebody tell me about it? So would you like to introduce the Course in Miracles to, say I'd never heard of the Course in Miracles, what would you say to me?
Okay. Well, I can say... Oh, I'm hearing an echo of my own voice. I can say what the Course in Miracles is and what it says, and they're two separate separate things. The simple one is what A Course in Miracles is a book. People think it's a course that they can go on. Now, there are courses that are based on it, but the course itself is a book, which is a self-study book, really. But people do like to. Because it is a path that completely can change your life and takes over your life in many ways. But people very often feel alone with it, like they're the only person that they know who's studying it, and it's having its effect in changing them. But we'd like to be able to share it with others. So you can join groups that meet all over the world, actually. Meet to study and discuss the course, and they can share their questions and their experiences with it. Get others, hear about others' experiences too, and discuss issues and what things mean and all that sort of thing. But okay, the book itself comprises 3 sections. There's a text which has the theory. There's a workbook with 365 lessons in it. So both the idea is that you do one every day of the year. Or in a leap year, you get a day off, which is very nice. You don't have to start on January the 1st, but very often people do, and they kind of repeat the lessons just because they get so much out of them and enjoy them so much. And I've done the lessons several times over now. And the 3rd volume is the smallest one, which is just, it's called The Manual for Teachers. And Course in Miracles says that we're all teachers. We're all teachers and we're all students, so we're all learning. But as we go about our lives, we teach others by our demonstration of who we are. And so there are a number of questions in the manual which kind of addresses basically how you spend your day, how you spend your life, making choices and the characteristics that you might develop along the way. So that's what A Course in Miracles is. Anything else to say about that? Okay, what it says is that we, by and large, living in this world, we've forgotten who we are. And I already, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, that the Bible says we're the sons of God. And well, the Bible doesn't say that. Of course,
no, it doesn't.
Confusing myself. We are the sons of God. It means we are created by God in His image, actually. So we're not who we think we are. We're not these personalities. We're not these bodies. We're that personality in that body is like a character in a dream, really, that we're having. And we've lost touch with the spiritual reality of who we really are. And the world itself that we appear to live in is also a made-up concept. It's made up of our perceptions of it, our beliefs, and our ideas, our thoughts of how it's supposed to be and how it is, and all the things that happen to us. It's not to say that they don't happen, but what we think that life's events mean about us is entirely made up by us. And when we have problems with other people, they may have done what they've done, but the beliefs that we have about them, that they're evil, bad people, they're this, they're that, and the other, all those sort of judgments and thoughts of condemnation of other people are just ideas that we've made up about them, which obscures the truth of who they are, which we've completely lost sight of by buying into this little drama. And so what the Course does is help you step by step to undo those beliefs and those projections. The word projection is a psychological term that psychologists, therapists are familiar with, which means these ideas that we've made up about others, that we've projected onto them. And it's about undoing those. And as we do that, we return to peace, increased peace of mind. we replace the thoughts of attack and condemnation of others with thoughts of love, and then that puts us into a different state of mind, whereby in that state of peace we're in a position where we then become aware of who we are, and it's a path of awakening step by step to who we are. It's a path home.
And who are we?
We are these sons of God, which means we're perfect spiritual beings, created whole and perfect, abundant and loving, and not who we think we are.
So to just...
very complicated, isn't it?
It is a little bit. My understanding of what you've just said is then we're born perfect, sons and daughters of God, and we have imposed on us by our peers and our parents and beliefs about who we are and who we should be, and the Course in Miracles is just taking off those layers so we go back to the pure, happy, peaceful child that was born. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I would. Strictly speaking, though, I wouldn't say it was imposed upon us by our parents.
Okay, strong word, sorry. lent to us by our parents.
Well, my understanding of what A Course in Miracles says is that we come into this world with this thought system that what he calls the ego thought system. The ego thought system is comprises the idea that we are bad, that we are guilty, and that others are to blame for it. That's definitely why I wouldn't go along with your idea that parents did it to you, because they're not actually to blame. But the ego says that they are, or that other people are to blame. But the point I'm making is we come into the world like that, and things that happen to us in life circumstances, confirm, in fact, reinforce those ideas, those mistaken ideas.
And the whole aim of the Course then is to get you back to your God self, is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, and also, I've read it a little bit. I won't lie and say I've been an avid student for years and years and years, but what I do know is everything outside of me is an illusion, and my ego will always keep me striving for more, so I'm never going to be happy in the illusion that's outside of me.
Right. The Course in Miracles says the motto of the ego is seek but do not find.
Exactly.
So I think that's very much what I was doing, and of course I still do. I'm on a path. I'm not saying you probably are, Caroline, but I'm not yet healed.
Oh, no, you can't call me St. Caroline just yet. Most definitely not.
So I still find that I get sucked into that whole kind of idea that if I only had more this or more that, or a better this or a better that, a better job, a bit more money, a better place to live, or a relationship, or to get out of a relationship, or whatever it is, then then I'll be happy when I have that.
And that's a lot of what Byron Katie talks about, isn't it? When I have ... I will be happy. And it's like, no, you need to come back from that and say, I am happy, and then maybe I'll attract what I think I want. But of course, if you do this deep inquiry work, you end up not wanting anything of what you wanted before. This is my experience anyway. The things that I used to hang my self-esteem on don't even slightly appeal to me now. I'm a different person in that respect. But
I think what we lose is that wanting. It doesn't mean we lose the things. There's no reason why we shouldn't have, more money or a nice place to live or a nice car or go on great holidays or whatever. Those can be. Those are not nothing is removed from us. The only things that are removed from us are the things that actually, in truth, have no value.
It was really interesting listening to you talking about, I lived a really affluent life, I had lots of girlfriends, I went travelling. Some people would really envy that life. But actually what you had inside was this, let's call it a black black cloud. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
And with which you would try...
Like a hole inside Billy. Yeah.
Here's a girlfriend to fill that. Here's a new car to fill that. Here's a holiday to fill that. And actually, it's never ending. Of course, it's never ending. So now I do know that one. I had a big black hole inside of myself, and used to be totally addicted to my passport. I mean, I've travelled wide. I love to travel, and it's not that I've taken away the love to travel. It's I don't need to do it. It'll make me happy, and it'll make, what I mean? That's completely changed. But
I still enjoy travelling as well as the acting that you mentioned. I love it, but yes, I guess that's the fundamental change. I don't need it anymore. I'm just much more content, fulfilled where I am.
Delighted.
And if I go travelling or do something like that, it's a bonus, and I enjoy it more than before.
Yeah. Very happy to have happy, contented people on my show. Fantastic. Okay.
Not all right, or not always. It depends when you ask me. But on average, I would say, I have my up days and my down days, but like
you're
everybody.
Yes.
But on average, I'm definitely far more fulfilled and contented than I was before.
Yes, and very calm. I find people that have done this work on themselves seem to be so much less dramatic and excitable, and they experience joy and happiness. But it's kind of these people that remove themselves from the everyday chaos that I used to live in. If that makes sense.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, when you have peace of mind. I think that imbues your whole day, your whole experience. We don't need to rush around.
But so many of my clients come to see me, and I have people come and they've been passed around the medical institutions or whatever. I don't mean institutions, that's the wrong word, but the medical practitioners, different specialists and stuff, and they come to me and nobody's been able to say what's wrong. And I ask the question, do you have that head that I call a washing machine head? And they go, yeah, and I can't sleep. And it's because their head just doesn't stop. It just goes round. It's crazy thinking. And, if you can bring people down from that and get their brain to settle down a little bit, great healing can happen. I love working with people like that.
Well, the washing machine head, that reminds me of an image that it describes the way this ego works that I told you about.
Yeah.
The ego is the one that points fingers at others and blames them. And what we do when we do that increases our sense of guilt. We feel bad about having attack thoughts about others. So when our guilt increases, the way the ego says to get rid of it is by blaming someone else again. I'm not to blame, they are. They're the guilty one. So then we do more projecting, and it goes round and round and round. It's exactly like a wash cycle, a washing machine. And, that's really what makes the world go round. It's not love, it's just guilt and blame.
Especially if you watch the news and read the newspapers.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I want to ask you about setting up this charity 20 years ago. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, in all honesty, I would say it was not my idea. It was when I got into A Course in Miracles, I found Marianne Williamson, who many of you will know, and I loved her lecture tapes, as they were in those days, cassettes. And I had a whole collection of them. And then I wanted to share them with others, so I started having people round to listen, and she was much less well known than she is now in those days. This was the early 90s. And then I started a little business, actually importing them to start with, and then latterly manufacturing them. So I got a little bit of a client base. And then several people said to me, one after the other, various times, why don't you start a Course in Miracles newsletter? Based on, they had them in the States, several people, organizations were producing newsletters based on A Course in Miracles in the States, but none over here. And I didn't know anything about writing or publishing or anything like that. It seemed like a lot of work to me. So I said, no, why me? Yeah, and then another person would say the same thing, and I go, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Or I can't do that, or I'd have all kinds of reasons for not doing it. And then finally, in 1994, Robert Holden, who many of your listeners will have heard of, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He and I were at a Marianne Williamson workshop together, and he turned to me and he said, Ian, why don't we do a Course in Miracles newsletter? So he was the first person to say we, was it you? And I knew Robert had experience of publishing, and he was editor of Caduceus magazine.
Oh, yes.
And at one time. And so I said yes to him. And he then disappeared for a while. But I'd made commitments, and there was a couple of other people around to help me. So together we put this first issue together in November 1994. So this coming November we celebrate our 20th birthday.
That's incredible.
And it just grew. I didn't, even then when we started, and it was a newsletter. Well, it's now grown into a magazine. We have conferences, all kinds of workshops. We have a huge mail order service for all kinds of Course in Miracles books and CDs. I do my own teaching. As you said, I had a book published. Actually, it wasn't last year. It was 2012.
Oh, I apologise. Yeah,
that's the detail.
What's your book?
So I never would have believed that all that was going to happen. I had no idea, and probably just as well, I had no idea. Because it would, I would have continued to be resistant to it. I think that the Spirit had another intention.
Yes. So would you like to, since you've very cleverly dropped your book into the conversation there, would you like to tell us what it's about?
Well, I began the newsletter, which became the magazine, as I said, and I was the editor, so I wrote little articles for each issue, thinking an editor should write an editorial. And what this book is a collection of those writings over the first 17 years of our existence. So it's 100-odd articles written over a period of 17 years. People say, how long did it take to write your book? And I truthfully say, well, 17 years. And when's the second book coming out? Well, maybe another 17 years. 15 years now, I guess. So it's a whole range of little essays, really, about different aspects of the Course in Miracles, both the theory and the practice of it, really. And I try to relate it to my own life and experiences I've had with the Course and just with life in general. And the book is called Of Course. It's available through Amazon. Best to search for my name, actually, then it comes up.
Which is Ian Patrick.
Yes, if you search for Of Course, it ignores the word of. Their search thing ignores the word of, and then it looks for course, and of course there's thousands of courses.
Yes. Different
kinds, like cookery courses and flower rating courses. So best to search my name.
Okay, and I'm sorry I jumped over you there, but I was going to say, do you look at the early writings that you did and see a complete difference in your perspective now, or are you pretty consistent?
That's a good question. I think there was a lot that I got quite clearly very early on, actually. But I was probably trying very hard. I guess what became easier is the process of writing.
Right.
I was trying very hard to write in the early days. And I had the magazine came out every 2 months. I had that deadline. That doesn't seem very often really in these days of blogs, I guess. But it seemed like quite frequently to me that I had to write these articles. So that's become easier. I got more confident with the process of writing. But I don't think my understanding. I think I've applied it more to my own life as I've gone along. I kind of got away from the theory a little bit and more into the experience of it. Yeah.
And what's the biggest thing you've taken away from the Course in Miracles then?
I think it's given me a different perspective on my life. I think prior to the course, as I say, it was all a bit pointless, a bit meaningless. And now, everything that happens I see as part of or potentially part of the process of growth, of moving forward on my path. Because Course in Miracles says we always have a choice with how we use things that happen to us. We can use the problems that life faces us with to just to kind of to stay stuck and to beat ourselves up or beat others up, or we can say, aha, this issue, this problem I have is an opportunity to grow, to heal, to forgive, to move forward. And so when good things happen in life, that's good. And when bad things happen, when we're challenged, that's also good. So so that I find that very, very comforting in that in a way there can be no bad things that happen to me. It's always part of this. Everything's always an opportunity for growth. So that's sort of become the overriding context of my life. Really, that it's a process of being on that path of moving towards God. Sort of my awareness moves in that direction.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does indeed, yes. And I'm just wondering for those listening that haven't quite found God yet, and my story was I hated God, religion, everything because of my childhood, I suppose, and it wasn't till I got into my 40s that I really developed my own, fantastic relationship with the God of my understanding, and, I would call that probably universe rather than God, but that's okay. And
do you know why you hated God?
Yes.
And that...
Yes.
I'm hoping you can illustrate a point I was going to make.
Yes, because, I learned this in the treatment centre when I was getting well, that if your parent figures are kind and supportive and loving, generally your opinion of God is kind, loving and supportive. If they're cruel, vindictive and horrendous, as mine were, then that's the image that you have of God. And actually it horrifies me now, truly, to think of the amount of times I must have said, well, Jesus didn't exist and I hate God and you're stupid for believing God. I was quite angry, I think. And now it's just hysterical because who do I work with more than anyone? It's Jesus, the Jesus energy. So I know that if I met someone who I knew 20 years ago, they'd probably faint from shock or something. But there's been a radical transformation in my life because I've discovered the truth. And I suppose that's really how I look at the Course in Miracles. It's about discovering the truth about what is real. And for me, it was massive forgiveness. And perhaps we could start talking about forgiveness because I think that is the core or the crux of the Course in Miracles.
Well, it is. Yes, I know. I did want to come on to that. But,
forgive yourself.
Just to say about God, though, before we move on to that, I was talking about how we project onto others. So we project a lot onto God.
Do you think? We do, yeah.
I don't think Christianity helps because it paints a my experience, very mixed picture.
Yes.
We're told on one level that, God's loving, and then particularly in the Old Testament of the Bible about, God being wrathful and striking us down with thunderbolts and
fear and
floods and all that kind of stuff, plagues of locusts, what have you. Not that we get a lot of those here, but
Yes.
So, and then also the story of Jesus, I don't think is designed to make us feel good, or the effect of it is not to make us feel good. I mean, the story of Easter, of Jesus being crucified for us, because we're bad, that isn't going to, increase our sense of guilt. I don't know what is.
No.
So I think people have a lot of resentment about God, but they totally and Jesus, totally misunderstanding what it's really about. But those people that have dismissed God, as I did actually in my teens and early 20s, I'm still searching.
Absolutely.
I do believe everyone is searching, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
And those that get on the, sex, drugs, and rock and roll path, or whether it's, alcohol or careers, bury themselves in a career and strive really, really hard to be successful. All that is to one end, really, is to bring meaning into their life, which is the search for God. They just don't know that it's God.
I agree.
They think it's in that career or in that bottle or in that whatever it is they're going for.
Or in that country, or yes, and for me, I think it's really important that I did that healing before I picked up A Course in Miracles, because if I'd gone into the Course in Miracles as angry and feeling as betrayed as I had, I wouldn't have got past the first page. I literally would have just gone, this is a load of rubbish, because I wasn't ready for it. But yeah, no, it's been a book I've had a love-hate relationship with. I seem to pick it up and play with it for a few weeks and then put it down again and then pick it up.
Well, it does challenge us. It says it's about undoing the ego. It's about complete. On one line it says it's about the complete reversal of the thought system of the world. So, we're thinking our thoughts are going in one direction. It's saying no. You got this wrong. It's about completely going the other way, completely turning it around. So all our beliefs about ourselves that we're so attached to, it's about undoing those, reversing those. And that's never going to be that easy. So I think you're doing it absolutely brilliantly. If you're doing it perfectly, if resistance doesn't come up, if you don't hate the book at any point, I don't think you're really doing it properly.
Great! For the first time in my life, I'm doing something well. I don't mean that. But well, actually, it's really interesting because I did see on the thread of this Gavin who asked the question, somebody saying, "Oh, it's really hard and should only be," and I'm like, actually, what are your thoughts on? I think it's really challenging. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a walk in the park, but at the same time, I think it's really important.
Sorry, what is?
Doing the course or having a look at the course.
Yes, I do think it's important.
I think somebody was trying to put someone else off by saying it's really hard, and I was like, oh, well.
I'm not going to pretend that it's easy. It is a challenge, as I just said, to completely turn around that kind of thought system and replace it with another one is not easy. But what else is there to do? That's what I think to myself sometimes. I can carry on the old ways that are painful and difficult and pointless and unfulfilling, or go the direction that the course is pointing, and doesn't expect you to get there in one go. It takes time, chipping away at the old block, really. But then I don't know what else to say.
Chipping away at the old block, yes. And I think, luckily, that's what I've been doing without knowing it. So like I said, I started studying under some people that, used it as a foundation for what they were teaching, and I'm very grateful for that. And that's how I met you, in fact, wasn't it, at the Vale Centre?
Yeah.
And
Gary Renard and Thomas.
Tom and Luke, yeah. And
I want to encourage people, though. I don't want to go away with this idea, God, it was really difficult. But it is difficult to start with, but it becomes a lot easier as you progress. And every little step that you take, it's valuable. And if you take one step forward and two steps back or something, you still make one step forward. So I find little gems, little nuggets in the course every time I open it. I have little realizations, little aha moments, or we're going to come on to forgiveness. Every time I forgive, that's a step forward. So we do it one step at a time. And there's an image of an iceberg which I rather like. It fits quite well. So you imagine an iceberg floating in the sea. right? You see a little bit of the iceberg sticking up above the water and a huge bulk of ice under the water. That's what the captain of the Titanic didn't know, right? So what happens is, if you remove a bit of the ice that you can see from above the surface, another bit pops up from below, and it looks like it's just as big, So you go, oh no, not another bit of another issue to work with, or this one again, or something. But I think it calls upon us then to have faith that the iceberg has actually got a little bit smaller, even though we can't actually see that.
But, a way of explaining that a little bit is like, if I look back at me 7 years ago when I got sober on March the 13th, 7 years ago. So on March 13th, I'll be 7 years sober. And I think about the person who I was when I put down that final drink and went into rehab, and I'm just not the same. Is it because I suddenly became a different person? No, I've been working really hard on myself over those 7 years, and sometimes I can still have those real, oh God, this is so hard. But I have to look back and see how far I've come, and I say that to so many people because we forget, don't we? We just think, oh, today's really awful and it's always been awful. And no, actually look back and see how far you've come, and it's incredible, the change.
That's right. Marianne Williamson says to look at Jesus and think, well, how far have I got to go to get to be in his state? But the much more encouraging thing is to look at how far you've come. Otherwise, you're really going to be disheartened.
But I really wanted to introduce something now. Newt Sanchez is a lady who's written a book called Undoing the Ego, and she's coming on the show in, I can't remember, I think it's in July, which I'm very excited about. But I was watching something she said today, and it really helped me. And she said, if you want to speed up your forgiveness, because I'm going to ask you later what forgiveness is to you, but she said this wonderful phrase, which everybody can start to do from now. So it's, if I have a chronic headache, or I'm really angry with Ian, or somebody's just rolled over my foot in the car, so we say, Spirit, help me to forgive myself for using, let's say Ian, for using Ian to attack myself and to separate from your love. So my anger at Ian I'm using that to attack myself and to separate myself from the love of God. And she was saying you can use that with people, places, things, illnesses. Well, I can't tell you, I'm going to be doing this every single time I think about it, about all my, my lack of belief in myself. Sometimes I have real lack of belief in myself, and, I'm really impatient with people that don't get what I'm saying. And, I have weaknesses. I know it's a big shock, but I do. So, Spirit, help me to forgive myself for using whatever it is to attack myself and to separate from your love. I love that. I'm absolutely thrilled I heard that.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
Wonderful, isn't it?
The reason we think that when we're angry at someone, when we're attacking them, we're hurting them. But the truth is we're hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why you use somebody else or a situation or whatever it is, the weather. Whilst you have an attack thoughts about them, you are hurting yourself. So you're using them to. Sorry, what's the line again? You're using them to
attack myself, to separate myself from the love of God.
Yeah. Whilst we're full of those sort of attack thoughts, which is hurting us, then we're disconnected with that love of God. You can't possibly hold two thought systems in your mind at the same time, that attack thought system of the ego and the loving thought system of God. They can't be in the same place at the same time. So whilst you're attacking, condemning another person, you're totally disconnected with your source and the truth of who you are. And then this is where forgiveness comes in. The Course in Miracles says that we attack others for what we actually condemn in ourselves and don't want to look at. And that's where the projection comes in.
Yeah.
So, as you forgive the other person, you're forgiving that belief that you have about yourself. So, self-forgiveness is great. It's quite hard to do, actually. It's actually easier to forgive someone else, someone out there, but it's actually the same thing. Because when you forgive them, you're forgiving that very same thing in yourself, because it's a projection.
But what does that forgiveness look like to you, Ian? Are you just literally saying, I forgive you, or how are you forgiving them?
Well, first of all, I recognise that despite appearances, it's something I projected onto them. That it's not about them, it's about me. That they're actually innocent, spiritual beings. I then recognise that this is a part of me, of my mind, of my thoughts, my beliefs about myself, and recognise that that's not actually the truth of who I am. And I ask for help from Spirit to remove that belief about myself.
Fabulous, that's really helpful.
Seeing through, and then he does, because it's not true.
Yes.
However convinced we are of the truth of our failings and other people's, it's not the truth. Whatever they've done, it doesn't make people evil. And so it must, those.
But this gets into the realm of preferences. I would prefer that you didn't murder my dog. And it would be harder to forgive you for murdering my... I don't have a dog, for all those listeners out there that are sensitive. I don't. It's just an example. I don't have a dog, but it would be harder to forgive you for doing that than for stealing my bag of sweets, for example. It's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah. The principle holds. So you can say, it's not to deny that this person killed your dog or eaten your sweets. So yeah, that still happened. But what I think it means about them is not true. This is something I have projected, because it's something I don't want to look at in myself, that I'm... well, okay, so they killed the dog, right? So, okay, what am I? I'm projecting onto the other person that they're an evil murderer, say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we're all capable of having murderous thoughts. And it's those that we're judging. Okay, we may not we may not act it out like others would be, but the thought is there. The thought is the same. So if you forgive the person who's murdered your dog, you're forgiving your own murderous thoughts. I mean, I have murderous thoughts every time I go into the bank or the post office. I think there's a long queue, or somebody's holding the queue up or something, so it's I've never yet killed anyone in that queue yet, but the thought is there. The thought is the same thought. It's the same thought that I then have the opportunity to forgive. Or the stealing his sweets. It's the thought, I may not steal anyone's sweets, but what does that say about the person who's stolen the sweets? That they're eating the sweets, that they're selfish, don't care about anybody but themselves, well, I'm certainly capable of... Pardon?
I said, God forgive, I'd be able to say, find an area that I was selfish. Oh, no.
Right. So each time you forgive, it's like that. So you're forgiving out there in the other person, but the effect is that you're forgiving that same thing in yourself. So you chip away at a little piece of ice on your iceberg, and gradually your iceberg of guilt, of self-condemnation, gets smaller and smaller. And each time you do that, you become more and more aware of your spiritual self, your God self. And that's the path, progressively.
And then the love and the joy and the compassion and all the good things come in because you've got less iceberg left.
But naturally, yeah. Naturally, this is another image, which is quite good. The Course in Miracles says that it doesn't aim at teaching the meaning of love, but instead it aims at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. It's a good line, isn't So the blocks to the awareness of love's presence are all your unforgiving thoughts about yourself and others. So as you remove those, so the image I was going to describe is like a garden with a tall, big wall around it, and the wall is so high, surrounded completely, that the garden's in complete darkness or in shade the whole time. And now, if you want to get more sunlight into the garden, what you've got to do is that you can't make the sun shine any more than it already is. You've got to start taking down some of the bricks from the wall.
Yes.
And as you do that, so the sun shines into the garden. In the same way that as we remove these blocks to the awareness of love's presence, that love just shines. And when we're in that space of love, then we're naturally going to be more loving to others and more compassionate and kinder.
Yeah. Much better.
How that works. Every issue we have, again, is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to remove one of those bricks from the wall.
I know, and sometimes I'm standing next to someone in a supermarket who's really huffing and puffing because they've had to wait 3 seconds because somebody did something, and I just want to say, darling, read this, but I don't. It's all about me. Okay, so if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Ian, what's the best thing to do? Work with you or do your courses? Or?
Okay, well, if I give you our website address, we are based in the UK, but for your international listeners, there are facilities that are available for, and we can send our magazine out to anywhere in the world, actually. So the website is www.miracles.org.uk, and we've got our 20th anniversary conference coming up in November. It's not on the website yet, but will be soon, the 15th and 16th of November.
Do you know who the speakers are?
We've got David Hoffmeister, Robert Holden,
yes.
Colin Tipping, the Radical Forgiveness guy.
Oh, he's amazing. I love his book.
Yeah. Miranda McPherson, and some newbies. We've got a guy, Michael Murray from Ireland, coming off from Ireland. We've got Paul Goodsmith and Jane Tipping, who are coming over from Holland.
Okay.
We've got Carolina Corrada from Spain. And I think we're going to have a guy from South Africa as well. So it's going to be a real international conference, the most international one that we've ever done, and introducing these new people. So we've got the oldies like Robert Holden, David Hoffmeister, and some speakers that people have not heard of. So that's great. But before that, there's all kinds of other things. Robert Holden and Nick Davis are doing a workshop on the 1st of February called Inspired. They have an annual start of the year workshop.
Okay.
I'm doing a weekend on looking at kind of an overview of the principles of the course in April, and all kinds of other things.
Are they usually
There's a Miracle Cafe in London that takes place on the last Thursday of every month.
Oh yes, that's what.
So if you're in London or nearby, come to the Miracle Cafe. That's in Kensington. I have a different speaker every month, and we have music and food, and that's really nice. So all the information you need is there, really.
And then I think you have listed on the website, don't you, groups around the country?
Yeah. There are about 70 groups, I think, from the far south to the far north.
Good.
We just list UK groups on our site. But yeah, there are a lot of those. And Z-books and CDs are available. There's downloads as well. We've got there's audios to download and video clips to watch for free of our different speakers and conferences and things.
Excellent.
All kinds of resources.
Okay, so that's miracles.org.uk.
Yeah.
All right, wow. And anything else you like? Oh, yes, you can buy the book that Ian has written on Amazon.
Yeah, that's on the the Miracle Network website.
Oh, is that? Okay.
Well, yes,
Cool.
naturally.
So do check it out, because I'm sure it's very, very good. I've been reading some of Ian's editorials, and they are very interesting. Okay, so Ian, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. It's been really interesting talking to you. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much. It's really nice to have the opportunity to share a little bit. And yeah, I love it the way the Course in Miracles says we teach, we learn.
Yeah.
And we teach best what we most need to learn. So when I talk about these things, I teach it to myself too, which is really cool.
And I really love, having a radio show, and I get really fantastic people coming on, and it's an education for me, and I love sharing what I do. So I think the radio is definitely my arena. I'm just so enjoying doing it. So thank you again so much for coming on, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Ian. Okay, so the next show is on January the 21st at 7 p.m. and my guest next week is Claire Russell. Claire is an intuitive expert, qualified healer, coach and sacred travel leader. She runs courses, tours and events internationally on the subjects of intuition, the subtle energy body and transformative coaching and healing. So thank you for listening to us on Spiritual Growth Tools on the radio, and if you would like to find out about the services and the products that I offer on the website, please go to www.spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk. If you have any questions at all, you can easily ask me through the contact page. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, and of course do find us on Facebook, which is Spiritual Growth Tools. So stay safe, and I hope you find the tools that you need to grow with grace this week. I will speak to you next week, and this has been Spiritual Growth Tools on the radio.
Thank you for listening to Spiritual Growth Tools live on the radio. For more information, go to spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk.